Alright, we got another car to work on this week. This here's a 1938 Chevy coupe, and pretty awesome car. This thing actually belongs to the guy who I bought the Lincoln from, and it is for sale. We're basically going to see if we can get it running and driving for him, but apparently this thing was undercover or in storage since about 1966. I think the guy he bought it from ran it or tried to run it here a couple years ago, just off of a boat tank type deal. Let's take a little closer look at this thing, and then we'll get working on it. Okay, so as you can see, pretty solid car. In the back here, apparently what these folks did, or what they used this thing for back in the day, is for hauling firewood. So they basically cut the back out and put these little wood slats in there to haul firewood to the house, I guess, or whatever. You can see you got a little bit of wrinkles there, but solid. There's really no rust through over on this side. I'll show you about the only little spot of rust there is on this thing, and by that I mean where it's eating away at the metal. Also, check out this license plate here. You can see the tab from '66, and also apparently what I think some folks would do is they would register these rigs as a truck and have to pay less taxes because they were using it as a farm vehicle. I think that's another reason why they had the back end cut out. Pretty neat. Cool old grill. Also a really cool hood ornament there. But the only real rust on this thing is kind of right down here, and other than that, you can see this thing is pretty solid. Take a peek at the interior. You got the doors, the seat. Obviously this thing would need a little bit of work, but look at that dash. We'll find out. Hopefully we can find out if any of these gauges work. That'd be pretty cool. And then basically it's just open in the back for the firewood hauling. And there you have it. Let's go ahead and open the hood. The way this hood opens is super neat, and both sides. So clicks in right there. It just kind of sits up like that, and you can do both sides like that. So it's pretty accessible getting to the motor there. Let's go ahead and check the oil real quick. Not bad. It's definitely needs to be changed because there don't seem to be much viscosity left in there. But I think what we'll do is see if we can get it fired, then we'll drain it and put some new oil in it. All right, let's go ahead and start digging into this thing. I think I'm going to try to see if I can turn it over with the fan first, and then I'll throw a battery in it and we'll see if the starter works and go from there. Okay, so I'm just gonna try to reach in here and grab the fan blades, and we'll see if this thing turns over, and it looks like it does. Turns over pretty easily. So that's awesome. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and throw a battery in then and see if our starter turns it over as well. All right. So this should be a 6-volt system, and it should be a positive ground. And it feels like the red wire is hooked to ground, so I believe that's correct. So let's go ahead and throw this in here. Let's see if we get any action. Oh man. Okay, so see if the key, oh boy. The key doesn't seem to want to turn. So I'm gonna see if I can get that unfroze. Oh! Starter does work. Wow, all right. That's good news. Well, let's go see if we get spark. All right, let's see if we're getting any spark here. I didn't see nothing down there. Okay, so let's just go ahead and run just a little bit of sandpaper in here. See if we can clear up this, or get this thing to spark. Just basically rough up both sides there before we start doing any adjusting. Let's see if that changes anything. All right, so I'm pretty sure it sparked there from what I could tell. And I just want to show you one little thing I did. They had this alligator clip wire on the starter there that was just kind of hanging up here, and I went ahead and hooked it to the wire on top of on the bottom of the coil here, as I would call it, I guess. And I think, you know, basically that's transferring power to the coil. And I think we got spark. So let's go ahead and throw the cap back on and see if we get spark at the spark plug. All right, so I went ahead and cleaned up the spark plug. Just kind of burnt the end and then just kind of ran the sandpaper on that electrode a little bit. Let's see if we get spark out of it. Yeah, can't believe it. Okay, so we got spark here. Well, now that we know we got spark, let's go ahead and throw this spark plug back in, and I'll pull the air cleaner off of that carburetor over there, and we'll see what it looks like inside there, and hopefully we can pour some fuel down the throat, see if this thing fires for us. Alright, so spark plug's back in. This thing, I think, just sits right on top of the carb there, so we can go ahead and pull that off. And let's take a peek inside here. It looks pretty dark. I don't know. It looks like the throttle linkage is free, so that's I don't know. I guess we'll dump some fuel down it and see what happens. Okay, here goes nothing. All right, let's give it another shot. All right, no action. Let's see here. All right, I have to grab a little bit more fuel in my container here, but let's go ahead and just give her another shot. I don't know if I gotta let fuel make it down to the cylinders there before it'll bark off. Let me give it a couple more tries before we dig into anything new. Oh my goodness. She's gonna run. I cannot believe it. This is amazing. That is so cool. Let's see if we can get it run a little longer here. Yeah, buddy. Woo-hoo! Yeah! Man, that is sweet. I can't believe it. It looks like there's some fuel running out of the bottom of the carb there where it connects to the intake, but I'm sure the seals are pretty dry, so we'll see if they kind of plump up as it soaks some stuff up. But man, this is awesome. Wow. I don't know for sure, but I do want to try to clean out the fuel tank on this one and try to run this one with the original fuel tank for this guy instead of the boat tank. So I'm going to try to tackle that, see what I can get done. Hopefully it's possible, but I guess we'll find out. Either way, this thing is going to be a runner, and this is very cool. I think I've got this one flat tire here. I'm going to go ahead and pull that off so I can bring it in. Hopefully we'll be able to find a spare tire or another used tire for this thing. I do have other tires that will fit this lug pattern, but if I could, I'd like to use the same wheel. So let's pull this off. And we've got a new tire. It doesn't really match the other ones, but at least we'll be able to get the project rolling. So if and when this thing runs and drives, at least we won't have any flat tires. All right, there we have it. All right, so before I get too crazy pulling the tank out, I'm just gonna first try to disconnect the line on the bottom here, and see how much we get draining out, and if it's kind of junky looking. I know it stinks like varnish big time, but just gonna see what we can maybe get out of here. I'm kind of in the line of fire. Okay. So maybe I gotta turn that. Oh boy. There ain't nothing coming out. Okay. Well, I guess now that I got the line off, I could pull the tank out. I'm gonna first attempt to just pull this piece off. And see if maybe just this little valve is clogged up. And hopefully this thing drains into the bucket here. Whoa. I think it's pretty dirty. I don't know. There ain't nothing coming out. Let's see if we can see up there. Maybe there's just no fuel in it. I might have to, it looks kind of cruddy up there, but might have to dump some fuel in there to see if there just wasn't any fuel. It sure smells pretty rank and whatnot, but who knows? This thing sure does look like it's all clogged up though. So I'll clean that up, and we'll see if we got any fuel, or if we if fuel actually drains out of that thing when I dump it in. All right, I wasn't getting much action down below on the fuel tank, so I decided I'm going to go ahead and just pull these boards out of the way. I got most of them disconnected at this point, and then I got the straps unbolted on the bottom there, so I think I'm at the point where I can pull the tank out, and then we can hopefully clean it out better, and you know, maybe try to get some of that gunk out of the bottom of it. So we'll get these boards out of the way right here, since they're sitting over top of the tank, and then see if we can't pull this thing out of here. So the nice part is now I can actually tell, I'm pretty sure this tank's empty, so that would be why there was no fuel running out the bottom. Now let's go ahead and pull it out. I'm definitely gonna have to see if this thing's leaking, because there's some fluid down below where the tank was sitting that's smells like fuel, so, or old fuel, but I don't know. I guess there's only one way to find out. out of here. So as you can see, it's really not too bad in there. There might be some grit or something down there, but I don't think I'll have to do too much to clean this thing out. I'll just maybe run some diesel fuel in it, switch it around a bit, and drain it out and pop it back in the car. But it don't look too awful bad. Obviously there's stuff in there you probably don't want, you know, coming down your fuel line, but let's see if we can get all that grit out and then throw it back in the car. So I put some diesel in this tank to slosh things around a bit, get all the grit out of it. And I was thinking to myself, this thing seems awful clean for a tank that's probably as old as it is. I thought they must have been draining this thing, but I think it drained itself. We got some pinholes down here, maybe even a crack. So for what I'm doing here, I'm gonna go ahead and just do a little repair on that. You know, normally I'd say, you know, just get a new tank for this, but for here, what I'm trying to do, I'm just going to do a quick repair so we can get it back on the road and see if we can't seal this thing up. So you can see here, there's the one hole, there's another hole right there, and I believe there might be a few little holes or cracks right along that little indentation there. Oh yeah, you can see another hole there. One other thing I want to do before I put the fuel tank back in is I want to blow out the fuel line, this one down here. I'm going to go to the back there and put the air hose on it, and we'll see if anything comes out of there. Now, call me crazy, but I don't think nothing came out of that thing. I'm gonna try blowing from this side as well. I may have to put a paper or something in front of that thing to see if I have anything blowing out of it, because I don't think I got any air coming through that line. Okay, I'm gonna throw a piece of this sandpaper in here, and we'll see if it does anything to it. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing coming out of that thing. So that line is completely clogged. Okay, I've decided I'm going to pull this whole line right out, because I'll be able to mess with it a little easier outside of the vehicle. So looks like it'll pull out easier out the back. Let me get it out of here, and then we'll see if we can get it cleared free. All right, so I finally got this line all cleared out. I ended up having to shove some welding wire down there and work it around a bit, because this thing was pretty clogged up right about in the middle here. And I just kind of kept poking away at it with welding wire, brake cleaner back and forth from both sides, and then air from both sides, and finally it blew all the junk out of there. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this back in the car. I already cleaned the little section of line that goes right to the fuel pump as well. So I think if I get this in, if I get the tank in, we may be able to see if we're getting fuel pumping up to the carb from the tank. So let me see what I can do here about getting it all in, and we'll give it a try. Okay. Okay. Ooh. All right, so I got all the fuel lines back in the car here. I got the tank up here. I got 5 gallons of fuel in the tank, and it's dry underneath it here. It's been sitting here for about 10 minutes already, so I think my patch worked. I think I'm gonna just go ahead and throw it back in here, and that way, once I'm ready here, I can start seeing if it pulls fuel up to the front. So let's get this back in and see what we're working with here. Well, looky there, fuel tank's in, lines are all installed. I got the little valve underneath the fuel tank open, so I don't know for sure, but I think if things are working, we should start seeing fuel come up this way. Maybe not. I would assume it would start filling the line a little bit, but I think we could start cranking and see if we get fuel out of that line right there. And if we do, then we know we're getting fuel to the carb. All right, battery's hooked back up. Let's give her a shot here. I'm assuming it would take a minute for fuel to get up that far here, let's go check the little sight glass or whatever it is above the fuel filter there, or the fuel pump. I don't see nothing there. I'm gonna crank her a little longer here. I don't want to go too much. Also, I don't know if I poured a little fuel in the carb and got the motor to spin over faster by firing it, if we would maybe get the fuel pump working a little quicker, or let's give it a shot. Okay, still firing like a champ. That's cool. Nothing coming out of that line yet. Might have to do a few more things to get it to pump. Okay, let's go take another look at that fuel filter. Where are you at? Right there? It looks like there's fuel in it. Right up to about right here. So maybe it's getting fuel up here. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna go a little more, I think. Oh, yes, yes, there she comes. Okay, so we're getting fuel up the line. This is sweet. Look at that, huh? Let's go ahead and I'm gonna hook this line back up. It looked like it was pretty clear coming out of there, so I think the fuel that I had in the tank was, I think this thing was totally dry, so whatever I had in the tank made its way up here now. So I'm gonna hook it up and let's see if we can get this thing idling. All right, so I got the line hooked up, but my little dealie is cracked right here, so hopefully it doesn't spray fuel out. I'm just gonna give it a quick shot and see what it does, just to see if this thing will idle on its own. And then at least we know. Okay, I'm not giving any gas. Wow, that's impressive. This old girl is still running like a top. No leak. It might be weeping out. Yeah, I might have to put a new end on there, but that's okay. Look at this. This is amazing. This is super cool. Sitting here idling all on her own. That is awesome. I want to try some gears, but I'm afraid I have zero brakes, so I don't know if I should mess with that yet. I might want to look into that first. The brake pedal is flat on the ground, so man, this is cool. All right, well, look at that. Next step is to see if I can get the brakes working, and then hopefully we can try the tranny out. Hopefully the tranny's good, and take her for a little spin. All right, so it's time to check the brakes out. So let's see what we're working with here. Schneckies. It's pretty dark. But from what I can see, it's dry. So, I think what I'm gonna do is just throw some fluid in there, see if I can bleed the brakes out. And hopefully we've got brakes. Okay, so I've tried bench bleeding this master cylinder, bleeding it, doing everything I could. I'm getting zero action at the pedal here, and I'm not getting any fluid coming up through the line here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing out, and then I think I'm gonna have to probably rebuild it. I'll see if I can find a rebuild kit from Napa or something, but I didn't see much online, so we'll have to see what we get out of there, or what's there's no pressure at all at the pedal, so we'll see what we find inside this thing. Okay. So there's the brake master. Let's see if we can't pull this thing apart and see what's leaking in there. All right, so I'm not gonna take the whole thing apart. I just want to try to get inside this cylinder here and see what we're working with. So we'll just take the main stuff off here so we can get to the whole piston, brake piston dealy, and see what we're working with. All right, so I got this end piece busted loose here, so let's pull this thing apart and see what we're working with. So you got that. You got, oh wow, this thing's pretty crusty. Okay, there's a crush washer there. There's a rubber gasket right here. I know this little filter piece is supposed to be on the end of the spring here. Well, there's fluid in here. A bunch of junk. It's got this pin holding that in. That comes out. There we go. Wow, pretty crusty in there. Right there. I think this thing might be seized in here. That might be what was causing the dealy. I'm gonna see if I can free it up and get it out of here, of course, and then we'll go over and look over all the rubber pieces and see kind of what we're dealing with. There it goes. Wow. There it is. This thing has seen better days. This thing is so full of crud. I don't see how anything could have been passing through here anyways. I might just clean it up, throw it back together, and see if I can bench bleed it on the ground here. I think I need to run some Scotch-Brite over all this stuff. This is nasty. All right. I think what I'll do is I'll brake clean this whole deal out. It doesn't look too bad in there because there's absolutely no fluid in it before. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of mud in there. I better scrape that out. Okay, so I think we're ready to throw this thing back together. I just basically got everything cleaned up. I haven't bought anything new yet. I wanted to see how things kind of looked first. And you know, all of the rubber looks pretty good. So I'm really not too worried about that. Now, I don't know if it'll work, because obviously it's all still pretty old, but it doesn't take too long to pull this thing apart and put it back together. So I'm willing to try it before I start running to town for parts, and we'll see how it goes. So as long as everything in there slides freely, all the gaskets look pretty good yet. I think it'll build pressure. So let me finish putting this all back together, and we'll throw it back in and give it a shot. Actually, I think what I'll do first is try to bench bleed it on the ground here to see if fluid actually pumps up through. If it does, I'll probably just go ahead and throw it back in the car and see if it bleeds through the brake lines. So that's about it. It's back together, and I should be able to see if she bench bleeds for me here in just a sec. All right, I'm ready to try bench bleeding this thing. So I'm gonna put some fluid in it, and run my hose up into the container there. Oh, shnikes. And look at that. She's pumping fluid through the hose. So this hose let's basically get all the bubbles out of the system, and we'll be able to throw it back in the car, and I believe we'll be able to bleed the brakes. This is pretty cool. Okay. All right. I was only able to get brake fluid to one wheel, but the pedal's pretty firm, so I'm just going to do a quick test and see first off if it grabs any gears, second off if the brakes stop the thing. So wish me luck. Let's see what happens. Okay, the brakes work good enough to take it for a spin, so I didn't change the oil yet, and then hopefully we can take it for a drive. While we have the engine oil draining, should probably also check the coolant here, and I don't see any in there, so we're going to just throw coolant in and see if it holds. Hopefully it does, but at least you know, then there'll be some in there if we take a little trip in it. All right, let's see what happens here. Oh, that about filled it up. All right, top her off with water, and there she is. Before we put the cap on, we'll run it to make sure we got all the air out of the system there. We'll go check if the oil's finished draining. Okay, the oil's done draining, so let's go ahead and fill that up. Okay, down the hatch. Let's go ahead and see what our level's at. Make sure we're not too full here. Oh no, just about right. Okay, the time has come. Let's see if we can take this thing for a little spin. So this thing kept dying on me when I took it out for a rip there. And it was every time I shifted into a higher gear. I don't know for sure, but I was getting some fuel leaking out of the line here, right where it goes on the carb, and it was peeing out of there. So I don't know if it was starving of fuel when I got to a higher RPM. Either way, I'm gonna go ahead and just put a barbed hose fitting on there and cut this, put just a chunk of rubber line in there, just to eliminate that, and then we'll fire it back up, see if she's got if the leak's gone, taken care of, and give it another shot. So here's what I came up with. You got the barbed fitting right here, and then basically just cut it off right about there, shoved it on a little ways so I could fit 2 hose clamps. But let's fire it up and see if it leaks. No leaks, looking good. All right, I feel a lot better about that. the carb off, as you can see. After I fixed that fuel line, I really wasn't getting any better results, and it got to a point where the vehicle would just die, and it wouldn't even fire back up unless I just poured gas straight down into the carb. It would fire up and run until it used up that fuel. So I thought, you know what, maybe there's a bunch of junk in this thing clogging things up. So regardless, I'm going to go ahead and clean all this up, make sure all the jets are clear and all the passages. We'll put it back together, throw it back on, see if we get any better results. So I already checked some of these things. I know that all of this, the inlet, the feeder line here in the middle, it's all tied in with this here. This takes the fuel out of the bowl and brings it up into the carb. I sprayed brake cleaner through that already. Basically, you see it coming up out of the center there, so we know that's clear. And that's kind of, I'm just going to keep going through and make sure there's no obstructions anywhere. There's no junk anywhere. We'll start with a fresh, clean carb. Okay, we got her all back together, so let's go throw her back in the car. All right, we got everything cleaned off. Let's put this carb back on here. We got everything hooked back up so that hopefully we can run it. Hopefully now that everything's clean and clear, we'll be able to get a little more of a continuous fuel feed to the motor here. Let's see. We'll go ahead and tighten this down before we hook everything back up. Okay, that's pretty tight there. Let's throw this vacuum line on here. The throttle linkage. And then I just gotta throw the choke on there and whatnot, and the fuel line. And voila, we're back in business. All right, so it's been a couple days since I put the carb back on here. I want to give it another shot here, see if it runs up for us. I did adjust this little idle screw here a little bit. Just try to get a little higher idle at, or higher RPM at idle. I may have to do a few adjustments yet. But let's see if it fires up for us. Okay, so she runs. I'm gonna probably do a little more tweaking on the carb to get it running a little better, but also on the first drive I took, there was pretty much no brakes, so I didn't have enough to just slow this thing down. So I think I am going to go through the brakes a little bit. Hopefully I can get a little more fluid bled out, but I think let me do that, and then we'll try to go for another spin. All right, so the brakes are bled out a little better than they were. I'm just going to do a quick test here and see if it stops this thing once I put her in gear. Oh, let's see here.